Thank you for joining us for the DAMES webinar series. At DAMES, Differently Abled Mothers Empowerment Society, we are committed to empowering parents of special needs children by providing educational webinars like the one you are about to watch today. If you enjoy this webinar and would like to learn more about DAMES, you can go to www.damesusa.com. Enjoy this webinar, and I hope to see you again soon.
Good morning, Dames members. We are so excited today to be featuring Best Buddies. Today we have with us Trevor Paxton, who is the Director of Development at Best Buddies International. He has been working there since 2014, and he sits on the board of directors for the ARC of Arizona. Trevor, we're so thrilled to have you here, and I love how multifaceted Best Buddies is, and as a display of that, we have not only one or two or three, but we have four presenters today who are going to talk all about Best Buddies and what you guys do and provide for the community. So I'm thrilled to have you guys here, and I cannot wait to learn more about what Best Buddies is all about. I'm gonna go ahead and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the intro, Michelle. We are very excited to be here and to be partnering with such a great organization. When we chatted earlier this year, about your involvement in getting involved with the Friendship Walk, the organization just really kind of just screamed off like right off the paper or the e-paper, the email. I really love the concept of it. I love that there is, this empowerment society and network for mothers all over the valley, because Lord knows we definitely all have challenges, and, support even from, just our peers or other people in the community is really vital. So thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you to everybody who has joined us. So like Michelle said, I work for Best Buddies International, and if you don't know much about Best Buddies, we are a nonprofit organization that is largely established on school campuses all throughout the Valley and actually across the country and internationally. But in the state of Arizona, we are on 55 school campuses across the state of Arizona, and that ranges everywhere from elementary school through high school and college and beyond. And we also have programs for those that are outside of school. We have a program called Best Buddies Citizens, and that's where we match people with intellectual and developmental disabilities with like-minded peers without disabilities in one-to-one friendships. And so that one-to-one friendships model is kind of the core of Best Buddies. And then we're actually really incredibly, grateful to all of our supporters. We're actually able to launch our jobs program this year. So we actually have an employment consultant hired, and she is going to be working with companies in our communities to find integrated employment opportunities for people with intellectual disabilities. We have a whole leadership development wing run by Nicole Paxton, who is our transitions manager. It's called our Best Buddies Ambassadors program. It's where we really just kind of teach very practical leadership skills for people with intellectual disabilities. And within the last year or two, we've actually expanded that to include people without disabilities. But enough about the organization. You can go to our website and read all of that. I am excited to help lead this panel. When Michelle reached out to me to lead this panel or this webinar, I had this idea of, really just kind of getting kind of the best and brightest minds within the IDD and social and emotional learning community all together to talk about resources, what might be available to parents, checking in on how we're feeling. And so it's been a really great opportunity to kind of pick the brains of all of these wonderful panelists who I'll introduce here in a second, and hopefully create a really great experience for you all. So I wanted to kind of reiterate what Michelle threw into the chat. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. We want this to be engaging, interactive. So I'm going to play a little bit of moderator, keeping us on track. And then you're probably not going to hear too much from me. That's the goal by design. And so our panelists are Annie Middlemist, who is a life coach and social and emotional learning expert, who has worked with Sanford Harmony and has traveled all across the country teaching social and emotional learning concepts to entire school districts, to teachers, to parents all over the place. So we are very grateful for her being on here. She's also a member of the Best Buddies Arizona Advisory Board as well. We have Ariel Sansom, who is the content specialist for Absolute HCBS. They do respite, rehabilitation, attendant care, and much more for pretty much anybody who has any sort of needs and qualifies for it. But on top of that, Ariel is a sibling of somebody with Down syndrome, and also just recently had, I think she's on, do you have 2 children now? But one of them, three children now. Awesome. Well, congratulations. And one was recently diagnosed with an intellectual disability. So this really kind of hits home for her as well. Additionally, we have Nicole Paxton, who I briefly introduced earlier. She's our transitions manager. So what she does is connects our one-to-one friendship programs with our integrated employment program. So she goes in and works with you largely, youth and young adults ages 14 to 22, and goes into the schools and teaches a pre-employment training services program entirely curated by Best Buddies. And so it's a really wonderful program that readies them for the job world. And then we have Blake Barrett, who's our program manager of volunteers for Best Buddies. So she is the engine that keeps our friendships model running. She provides resources, works with students, teachers, parents alike. So she has a lot of very valuable insight and input when it comes to the things that she's seen as somebody who works directly with all of our people in our school programs and the needs that they have and the challenges that they face. So without further ado, like I said, I want to stop talking and really turn this over to the wonderful women that are part of this panel. And I think what we'll start off with is with Annie. There's the mood meter that I believe is in, I can't remember which book it's in. I think it was it developed by Harvard? I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah.
Pop there and we'll just go right away.
All right, great. Oops. Come on back. There we go. Okay. All right. Well, good morning. Thank you so much for all of us gathering here today. I love when I can be on a panel of like-minded people who all have the same intention on what we want going forward in the world of equity and helping everyone get the same opportunities that they need, not the same opportunities, but the opportunities that they need. But during this pandemic and all the shifts we've done, I mean, you think you've got your act together on Monday, and by Wednesday, it has all been blown up by some other thing that's changing. And we need to be honest with ourselves about how that's affecting our moods. So we started working with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and Mark Brackett, who wrote a book called Permission to Feel, starts out with this mood meter. And not only do we use this mood meter in our meetings, but there's also an app. It's like $2.99, and you can check every day. You wake up and you check your mood. How am I feeling today? And really take a moment. And you can do this with your kids. You can do this with yourself. So looking at the mood meter, just think right now, what comes to mind? What color are you in? You don't have to tell us your specific emotion, but just what color are you in? Type that in the chat box. What color are you in? All right, yellow is a good answer. Keep them coming. What color are you in today? And the second part to this, with your color and acknowledging what color you're in, take a minute and write down your color. If you have a pen in front of you, take a minute and write down your color and the word that goes with it. What word? This is for your own work. What word is connecting to your feelings right now? And then from there, do you want to stay there? And if you want to stay there, write down a way you're going to stay there. If you're feeling pleasant, how are you going to stay there? Are you going to watch a good show? Are you going to make a delicious lunch later? How are you going to stay there? But if you're over here in the worried and the uneasy and the timid and the excluded, how can you get out of there? Write yourself a little note what you're going to do today to either stay in your mood where you want to stay or shift out of your mood. This little exercise to do with ourselves and to do with our children is so great to bring that connection. Instead of just, how are you feeling today? Kids usually say, fine, okay, tired. We get a lot of tired. And tired can mean so many things, especially in children. Tired can mean sad. Tired can mean depressed. Tired can mean confused, frustrated. So go a little further and go through these words with your family and talk about these and what makes you feel these different feelings. You could do a whole kind of family dinner time workshop on our moods together and use this mood meter. So I like to use the app, and it's a great way to start off understanding how you feel and how everyone feels together. So when I'm working with Still Grieving RBG, thanks Sandra, me too. Dashes of blue, I love this. I love, Trevor, that's so you. I'm a little here, I'm a little green, I'm a little not committing to your color. But so I did this with teachers right before school started. I do this about every week with somewhere in the country, but I did this with teachers week before school started, and 80% were red. 80% of teachers before they went back to school were in red. They were terrified about how this was all going to go. Then I started doing it again, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and we're shifting. We're going over to yellow. We're having a good time. We're energized. We're excited. But boy, you know, they were really honest. And remember, a lot of those teachers, maybe your friends, maybe your neighbors, they're also parents. They're also having those frustrations. So keep in touch. If you have a child that's online right now, make sure you keep in touch with your teacher and see how they're doing. That's another really great way to teach empathy to your children, is have them ask back. When someone says, how are you doing? Have them ask back, how are you doing? That's a really nice way to teach empathy and gratitude to kids. So that's our mood meter to kick off. Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I love the centering around, you know, how we're feeling, so that way we can, as we move through, make sure that we're keeping we're paying attention to that. You know, maybe some of the topics bring out a little bit of red. Pay attention to that, kind of see how that shows up, and you know, let's continue forward. But I wanted to continue the conversation on parents. You know, so often we focus on the needs of our children before we focus on our needs. So for Annie and Ariel, you know, go ahead and take turns, or, you know, talk at the same time if you want to, but we are, you know, how are you taking care of yourself as parents? And, you know, why is that important to you to make sure that you are staying focused on yourself as well as the people that you love very much?
Well, I can start. I have a really hard time with this. You know, it's really hard to put yourself first when you're always thinking about your kids and going from one activity to the next activity. And then I manage not only my own child's needs, but I help manage my sister's needs. So, you know, I am really blessed that I've recently found like a good group of other women who really understand, you know, what it's like to be a parent of a child with special needs. And I'm part of a different couple of sibling groups where they understand what it is like. And I just need the accountability from other people who check in with me and say, you know, how are you today? How are you feeling? How can I help you? And to just kind of like remind me like, oh, wow, you know, like maybe I haven't taken a shower today, or, you know, maybe I should eat breakfast and it's, you know, 3 p.m. To just kind of hold me accountable that I'm making sure I take care of myself, because otherwise I'm not going to. Like, it's the last priority. You know, even before I go to bed at night, I'm still thinking about my child. Like, how am I going to get her to go to sleep? Is she going to have a good night tonight? Is she going to stay asleep? So just really doing that. And then, you know, at home, my husband helps a lot with that. You know, he always asks, like, did you do this today? Like, have you eaten? Have you done this? You know, just to kind of be like, you know, it'll be okay for a minute. Like, there might be yelling for a couple of seconds, but it's okay to go and do something for yourself. If you need to go, you know, sit in the bathroom for 3 seconds and be alone without a child like hanging on you or what have you. which trust me is very, very real.
Very real.
So, otherwise, without other people, I wouldn't be able to do it. And there's just no way. Like, sorry, but that's the honest truth.
Yeah. I really support that. Ariel, you are in deep weeds right now, and I can tell you, as the mother of a 21 and 18-year-old, it does get easier. It gets more fun. I have spent many a day crying in my minivan in the garage. Also, that's where I have phone calls. That was my office. I'd tell my husband to watch the kids, and I was going to my office, and I'd be in my car in the garage. That was the only quiet time I had, because they figured out the laundry room, they figured out the bathroom, all my other hiding spaces. But I really want to support that you have accountability, and whether you are a parent or not a parent or whatever you're doing, if you're feeling isolated working from home, that accountability buddy is critical. I have 2 accountability buddies, and we check in on anything from, did you exercise? How are you doing with your sugar? Did you call other people today? Did you do something creative today? I had a friend who had a really struggling, and I said, have you done anything creative the past few weeks? And she's like, I really haven't. So last time I was at your house, you had painted chairs and painted walls, and I wonder if you're forgetting something that feeds your soul. So I really want to celebrate that you are trying to take care of yourself, Ariel, and having a glass of wine in the minivan in the garage is not a crime. I just want to give you permission. It's going to be okay. And they're going to be okay. Most importantly, they are going to be just fine.
Yeah,
So.
I definitely feel that, and I apologize. Like, you can tell that it's hard to get those couple of minutes to yourself or to do something for yourself. Like, I have my son Benjamin with me, and my daughter Macy is on the floor under the table right now pretending to be a dog, and I have others on online learning, so there's a lot going on. And they're always everywhere, but that's okay. So
Yeah,
basically you just have to take it one step at a time is kind of what I've learned. And like, it is overwhelming, and it's okay. Like, for the longest time I was like, wow, I should not be this frazzled, and I should not be this upset. And it took me a while to realize that it's a normal feeling, it's an okay feeling, and you have to be able to express it somehow. And if it is drinking wine in the minivan, which I totally would do if I wasn't pregnant, but whatever it happens to be, my 2 a.m. Facebook scroll or my level 800 Candy Crush, those are the little things that keep me sane during the day. Otherwise, you'd walk into my house and you'd be like, wow, I wouldn't wish this on anybody.
right. Just keep on laughing. They're going to be fine. Good for you taking care of yourself.
Totally. And I feel like that's a really great kind of segue into, you mentioned, remote learning and all that. All of us are kind of navigating this world together, and none of us really have any of the answers. But a lot of us have been thrust into roles that we never really kind of foresaw ourselves being in. And so, with parents taking on even more extra roles on top of the, just insane amount of roles that a parent already plays, especially in today's world, kind of a 2-part question for the group. But, what resources are available to parents and their children that they may not know about outside of, a glass of wine in the minivan? And what's the path that you see for the parents to, most easily and properly utilize these resources to make sure that, they're, not only knowing that they exist, but, what's the tangible way for them to access these?
I think I can speak on this a little bit. Hi again, my name is Blake. I am the program manager of volunteers for Best Buddies, which means I manage all of our school programs. So I spend most of my days chatting with students and advisors and sometimes parents, but I think predominantly for me, it's wrangling in a bunch of high school kids, and they are trying to navigate how to do virtual learning or hybrid learning, or if they're going back in person. And so feeling their stress, I know, is kind of teetering down from their parents too. They're just trying, especially families that have, multiple siblings too. At Best Buddies, we currently have 59 chapters all over the state of Arizona. So seeing how every single school is dealing with everything is a lot. So the amount of resources and helping parents and students deal with it is they're just so different in everywhere. I know a lot of schools are doing kind of a parent support group that a lot of parents don't necessarily know about. It's coming from teachers, it's coming from advisors. That's something, so definitely reach out to your teacher, check on them, and have those conversations. And a lot of them are doing like different Zoom groups with how to make everything easier for their students. That's what I've heard is a really recent thing that they've trying to get off the ground. Best Buddies, we're doing trainings too. We have a whole online platform called Best Buddies University, but that's kind of a little bit different. But yeah, so my biggest thing would be to really reach out to those teachers and see what's going on. And then from there, hopefully connecting with other parents in your child's class, because everybody's kind of dealing with it and dealing with it in very different ways. So having that support and just like Annie said, having somebody to check in on you is so much more helpful if they're going through the exact same thing that you are. So if they're another parent of a student in your class, that's going to be huge for both.
I love that. And I feel like I had a question for just kind of follow up on that. What are some things, if any of you are like me, that, everybody's kind of going through and struggling with very similar things. So I never want to be a burden by like asking more questions as to, hey, can our kids get together, or, reaching out to a teacher who we know is already stressed to the maximum. Like Annie said, hopefully that color has shifted from red to yellow, but we know very well that the colors are all interchangeable kind of at any given time. And so I guess the question would be, as somebody who may not want to overly contribute to, somebody else's stress or anxiety or frustrations, how do you navigate those conversations with teachers, with, maybe some of your fellow parents of your children's peers and all that?
I think if you are a parent who's willing to kind of take on a little bit more, you could approach her in a sense of, hey, I have this idea to put together a support group for other parents. And then, yes, it does take a little bit more work in the beginning, but once it's kind of up and running, then you do have that total support system. And then that kind of takes everything off of your teacher's plate as well, and just lets them know that, hey, you guys are here also. And there really is power in numbers, and the support is just huge.
And I was going to share, so I'm Nicole Paxton, and I am recently doing the transitions program, so teaching that pre-employment and doing other leadership stuff. And as part of the leadership stuff that we do with our ambassadors, for years they have been people with an IDD, and we've recently opened it up to people without as well, and that includes parents. I have seen other states that have successfully utilized parents to be advocates and be ambassadors for Best Buddies in Arizona. Because a big part of some of the ambassador trainings that we do is speech writing. And so they are learning how to be self-advocates for themselves and share their story. It doesn't have to be Best Buddies related. It's just sharing their story. And I would love to have some parents that kind of do that and share their story as a parent, kind of going through all the things and some of the stuff that they've gone through. And a large part of utilizing those speeches, we don't just write them just to have them. We do a lot of networking and like corporate things, and we bring our ambassadors along to share part of our mission and show what we really are. And so I think that utilizing parents in that way gives you guys an opportunity to kind of show mostly the rest of the corporate world that, this is super impactful, not just for the students or people as they've grown up, but it's also impactful for parents and how their lives have changed. And you guys have a story to share too.
Totally. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love the ambassadors program. Before I even worked for Best Buddies, I volunteered for a long time and, kind of volunteered as a speech coach. I don't really have any full outright training in public speaking or anything like that, but, it definitely, just helps having somebody there kind of encouraging people to kind of take that step to dig a little bit deeper into how are you feeling? What's my story? Why am I here? How what can other people kind of gain from hearing my story? And so I think it's a really cool program, and I love that it's been opened up to parents and peers of our kids with IDD, and really just anybody. If you have a story, we want to be able to help give a platform to tell that, and it is um, a really nice tool to have um, that kind of strength in numbers, like Blake was talking about. I did want to kind of bring up a little bit before we talked a little bit earlier, about checking in about, like Annie had mentioned, more than just how are you feeling? Tired, stressed, good, fine. When's the last time that you kind of checked in? And Annie, I want to have you kind of lead a little bit on this session or on this topic. And just kind of, how as a parent, how do you provide children with the tools and power to solve their own problems, and just kind of diving a little bit deeper into that.
I have done a lot of work. I was a teacher for 15 years. I taught special education, and a lot of fourth, fifth, and sixth graders was my main target. So pre-adolescence, and then moving into middle school as well. So, getting those kids to share how they're feeling and also get out of their head. Adolescence is such a spotlights on me developmental time. If you pull in and drop off your kids at carpool at a middle school, you will see every single kid with the visor down, fixing their hair in the mirror. Every single one. No one's looking at anyone else. They're really just worried about how they look. So they can't get out of their heads. So when you talk with your kids, also bringing up how are their friends doing sometimes gets some words out. So if they have a friend and you say, well, how's Tony feeling about all this? Sometimes you can go in kind of the back door to the emotions room by asking about their friends and see what's happening there. And then you can build that empathy. And I'm telling you, when they start feeling that gratitude is absolutely the fast track to happiness, 100%. And so if they can start feeling thankful for how, how their house is, aren't we thankful that we have a dog to play with? Just little things, because it's so easy, boy, to just pile all the horrible things about life on your head. And kids, when they get into a funk, I used to have a fifth grader who came to my room every day at like 7 o'clock, and I'd say, how was your night last night? And he'd be like, it was awful. And he'd throw down his backpack and he'd tell me this horrible story. And I'd just say, that was an awful night. I am so sorry that happened to you. How would you like today to be? So first, acknowledge how they're feeling, even if you think it's silly. When we do emotions checks with our students and we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how they're feeling, the 1 is the one you need to circle back on, and the 2. Anything could be going on in that house, but it could be anything from food scarcity, loneliness, abuse, or my sister ate the last waffle. And all of those are upsetting that child and making them, Ariel, when your kids are little and you slice the banana and you weren't supposed to slice the banana and they're screaming, you slice the banana! Again, that's not about you. And as a parent, just really opening the door, turning off the radio when you drive in the car. That awkward silence gets kids talking. The more you can be good with uncomfortable silence, just stay quiet. They're going to talk, but you got to stay quiet, ask a question, and wait till it gets awkward, and then they'll start talking. And I just had that experience with my son who's just started college, and I asked him if he'd go Goodwill hunting with me. We went to like 6 Goodwills. And now I know what classes he's taking and what assignments he did and about his roommate and who he's hanging out with. I had heard none of that from all of our phone calls and text messages. So let that awkward silence happen. And I think you're gonna tune into how your kids are, but always make sure you acknowledge their feeling. Don't dismiss it. It's a real feeling. Even if they're being dramatic, It's a real feeling. So just be patient with it. And the motto, I have to remember this motto because as a parent, they're not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. And I have that pinned to my monitor on my computer. It is my mantra with my very naughty dog puppy that I have, that I was out with the trainer and the trainer said, Roxy's not giving you a hard time, she's having a hard time. And I'm like, how did you hear that? He goes, I say it about dogs. I'm like, I say it about children. So keep saying to yourself, this child is not giving me a hard time, they're having a hard time, and help them work through it.
I absolutely love that. And I think, you know, when you touched on, you know, their sister ate the last waffle, you know, that can be as catastrophic as some of the other more serious things for sure.
Yes, as much as your hamster dying. I mean, really, it's, yeah. Or a friend not calling you back, or not being invited to a birthday party where everyone else is going. You know, hurt feelings are hurt feelings.
And just because it, you know, it doesn't seem like it may be as big of a deal doesn't mean that it isn't to them. And I wanted to kind of ask Ariel, as the sibling of somebody with an intellectual disability, you know, having grown up with her, you know, for years and years and years, I know for sure I've spoken with other people who have siblings with IDD, and you know, they love them to their core, but at times it can be so incredibly frustrating. And so, what, from your experience, you know, what was growing up with your sister like? When you got frustrated, you know, what are some things that you heard from your parents? What are some things that you wish that your parents may have, some insight that your parents may have given you in that moment, and paid attention to how you were feeling? Kind of just the whole experience, you know, of, you know, having a sibling with IDD. You know, how has that kind of shaped how you now kind of interact with the world a little bit?
Sorry, trying to unmute. Yeah, definitely. Like even yesterday, so we had a very typical sibling relationship. Like there was bickering, there was fighting. Sorry. There was, you know. Sorry, Ben, you're fine. We're just talking about Auntie Sarah. Yeah, even yesterday, like I'm trying to get her to go to work, and she's like, it's not 10 yet. It's not 10 yet. We don't leave the house. We don't leave the house. And I'm like, well, you have to be there at 10. Like, we can't leave at 10 to be somewhere for 10. Like, it's just not physically possible. And so she got mad, and, you know, she's like, you're a meanie head. And then, you know, she left the door open, and the children got out, the dog got out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like, what's going on? Like, I'm quite frankly very angry. You know, I'm definitely in the red. Especially when you're trying to like catch the dog and like make sure no one's gonna get hit by a car and everything. And I just like, I have to remember, like, she just needs more time to process. And, like, my parents always said that, like, it just takes more time, more patience. And she's 21 and I'm still learning. Like, it takes more time, more patience. And we're always going to have that typical sibling dynamic. Even if we didn't leave the house at 10, like, she's still going to give me a hard time because she's my sister. You know, it's just, it is what it is. And for the longest time growing up, like, I didn't know Sarah had Down syndrome. Like, I'm not going to lie, I was probably like in second grade, third grade maybe, when it finally clicked that, oh, like, my sister's different than your sister. And she's different than my other sisters. And it just took a really long time. And, like, you know, I didn't register, like, oh, we had therapists and providers and people coming into our house. I thought, you know, like, that was everybody's house. And it kind of took other people to kind of point it out. And my parents never made it like, well, Sarah is unique and Sarah is special. And, you know, it's all about Sarah. It was never that way. So we never had to feel like any kind of resentment towards her. It was just always a very typical relationship. And I'm really happy that my parents did that, you know, for us, because being older and being in some of the sibling groups, like, there are a lot of different experiences out there, and experiences that I can't really fathom because that wasn't how it was growing up for us. Some, you know, like, don't play on the computer. some I can't wrap my head around that would be like what home is like, but it's perfectly valid, and it is their experience. But that's kind of what it was like growing up, and even now, like, it's all kind of the same. I'm one of Sarah's co-guardians, so it's kind of funny because now she's like, you're not my sister, you're my guardian. You're my guardian. Like, you're not my sister anymore. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but hope you still like me. So that's been my experience, and everything that we did regarding Sarah was always Down syndrome focused. So then when I had Macy, it was a whole new world to me, going into the autism community and trying to learn what that was like. And I'm still it's still really hard, and it's hard to figure out where my place is in all of that. Just because my experience with Sarah is so different than where I am now in life. And yes, it's prepared me. Like, I know about DDD and AZIP, and I know who to call if I'm in trouble, and where to start as the basic building block. No lollipops. Sorry. But it's just very different. And being involved with Sarah from a really young age really set me up, because I know there are a lot of siblings out there who aren't as involved, and they aren't as familiar with the process. And then by the time they're ready to help with care, they don't know what to do, and it's like a new parent getting a new diagnosis. Like, where do I start? Where do I go? Who's out there for me? And there are a lot of groups that don't always validate the sibling experience. And that was always very difficult for me, because it's like, I have those same feelings that you have as a parent. You know, I also grieve the relationship that I could have had with my sister had she not been born with Down syndrome. You know, I'm still struggling to accept, like, this is where she's at, this is where we're going, and how do we get there? So that's just kind of my whole take on my sibling experience. But just to remember, for all the siblings out there, their feelings are valid too, and to just make sure that we recognize them and we see them, not necessarily like, oh, I'm busy with so and so, and I'll get to you, and you're just as important, and you know, you're learning love and patience. But you know, it's okay to be sad and scared and happy, and you know, all of these different emotions, and just validate them as a sibling. And my parents did a very good job with that, and I'm hoping that I can do that with my own children. So
yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. And I love when you had said that, you know, you grateful for your parents for, you know, continuously having conversations about, you know, being patient, kind of taking things at your own pace, definitely allowing yourself to feel those frustrations or those, you know, excited moments and everything, and continue to forge that relationship with your sister. I think one thing that I really latched onto that you said was, you know, it wasn't until second or third grade when you realized that, oh, my sister has Down syndrome, my sister's different. And I want to jump ahead a little bit and kind of talk to Blake and Nicole a little bit about, you know, it was about 3 years ago, Best Buddies kind of opened up into the elementary school realm. And I guess for the two of you, what's been the, you know, that change that you've kind of seen? You know, what's the benefit in kind of teaching this, you know, inclusive mindset at an earlier age? So that way, like Ariel said, you know, those siblings that may not be as involved, who once the time that they're ready to get involved, they don't really necessarily know how to, they don't really have that full relationship with their sibling. How do you see Best Buddies kind of interacting in that realm?
Yeah, so for me, I started working with people with IED when I was 16, and I had kind of worked with the Arc of Tempe beforehand, starting at 15. So for me, and there's some people, I was just talking to one of my good friends, Poco. He moved to not Long Beach, where did he move to? Orange County, somewhere, I don't know. Anyways, he called me the other day, and I've known Poco for more than a decade. And it seems that at this point, they're like part of my siblings and people that I've known and stay connected with for a really long time. So I'm very glad that I was opened up to this experience at like my kind of early teen years to see that this is the world that I wanted to go into. Because like Ariel was saying, it's just kind of helping understand and create, like, this is just part of our world. It's not that there's anything different. So I used to work in special education as a paraprofessional on the elementary school level. And all of the students at the school knew the like acronym, because every special ed classroom has an acronym that goes with it. So in Tempe, the program I was in was called Spark. And they were always, even the other students their age were calling them, oh, those are the Spark kids, or oh, one of your kids is like acting out right now. And so I made it really clear to a lot of the gen ed kids of like, well, first off, I don't even know why you know that acronym. That means the other gen ed teachers are saying it, which I don't love. And then, you know, it was well, I'm not the classroom teacher, I'm the paraphrase. So go tell the PE teacher, like redirecting who they should be going to. They're not my kids, they're part of your class. They're in PE, they're part of your class. This is the typical. So I'm a huge supporter of this elementary side of things because even at that young age, every student knows where the special ed classroom is and they know what kind of students are in there specifically. And so at my school, I pushed really hard to like stop using the acronym altogether. We are not this separate thing. We are doing lunch integrated all together. They were sitting at a table that was 4 tables away in the cafeteria. Like, why are we doing that? And so I think that as soon as we kind of started to do that and I helped bring the club to the campus, was just really opening up to the other students that they are just their classmates and it is just the way that it is. So that's kind of been my experience through all of this, and hence why I work with Best Buddies now, and I have done it for a long time.
Just to kind of play off of that a little bit, my experience was totally different growing up. Everything was extremely separate all through elementary school, middle school, and high school. The special ed kids were at a different side of the school. They ate lunch at a different time. We were not involved in any of the same classes. It was so separate. And I never understood why that was the case. It didn't make any sense to me. I thought it was pretty terrible. It was very, I'm sure, lonely. There was like 6 kids in that class and that was it. So then growing up as an adult, I was like, this is not the way it should be. Like, this is absolutely not the way it should be. It should just be so normalized, which I think is why Best Buddies in schools is so important, because it's creating these friendships at such a young age to not show that these kids are at this side of the school and then these kids are at this side of the school and you can't eat lunch together because they ate lunch at a different time, and you can't have PE with them because they have PE at a different time. There shouldn't be this huge factor of difference. And with starting so young and getting all of these kids involved in these clubs, they can create these friendships that, you know, potentially can last a decade, can last all throughout high school, college, into adult. And if it doesn't, you know, all of our students still remember that this was something that they were a part of when they were younger, and to hopefully bring that in to the world that they are creating and they are growing into. And really, the inclusivity is just a huge factor. And if you start kids so young with literally anything that they do, then they carry that on for the rest of their lives. And we really just want them to help build a better world, and they're our future. And I think the more involved we can have everybody be and the more inclusive we can have them be, then the better that the world's going to be.
And that's a big part of kind of the leadership stuff that we do. And I wish we taught it to even younger, but like that self-advocacy portion of it. Which, as I'm teaching to the schools kind of through pre-employment, at the self-advocacy is just really simply like expressing that you need help and expressing what you like or don't like. And we do that on a regular basis. I say that I don't like this kind of music. I don't like this, XYZ things. And so it's just, you know, teaching even self-advocacy to the elementary students and saying, hey, sometimes rooms are really loud for me, so I need to wear headphones, and make it just as simple as that. It's not this whole, you know, oh, well, this person so-and-so does this XYZ things. And the students I work with, not all of them could communicate those needs. And so helping them communicate them, which is definitely a factor into a lot of our lives, but it's just saying it as plainly as we possibly can and not going in depth to make it seem that it's totally different. And that's something that I've experienced. And kind of continue to teach that self-advocacy at such a young age. Just say, sometimes classrooms are loud for me, I have to wear headphones. So we definitely just really try to push that self-advocacy portion. And, you know, as parents, of course, you guys are the biggest advocates for your children and speaking for them and everything, but it is exhausting. And so if we can kind of help them teach that tool of how to do it themselves, it'll be as beneficial for you as it is for them.
Totally. And I think that, you know, having worked in programs prior to working in development, I really love that we are able to kind of see that full kind of like those light bulb moments that happen amongst like all of these amazing friendships. And I think the coolest part is when you see that just continued like culture shift on a school campus, where it goes from, you know, Blake's experience where, you know, realizing, oh, there are these kids that I see in a different classroom, they eat lunch at a different time. You know, why is that way? And I feel like over the last 10, 15 years, societally, we've kind of taken some pretty great steps forward, but we still have a lot of work to do. And I wanted to ask Annie, I know that you sit on the advisory board for Best Buddies. You also see schools all over the country. You know, what kind of, you know, influence have you seen in the schools that have Best Buddies versus the ones that don't?
Oh, absolutely. It's such a great mindset. And how you said there's a shift. My niece, you know, is this cute little popular, all about what brand she's wearing, and, you know, practically lives at Sephora, and she's so obsessed with herself. But then this summer was calling me saying, I really want to join Best Buddies. How can you get me in? I'm trying to find out how to join. I love these people. I love these people at school. And I never saw it in her. Like, I had a prejudice kind of against, oh, she's that type of girl, you know, but being open and accepting others is popular. And talking about, you know, with kids, like, who's popular at school, when you ask that, you're supposed to ask the kids, who do most people like? Who's the nicest person at your school? And that shift is really happening in popularity as opposed to notorious, you know, that, you know, the popular girls, man, you wouldn't want to walk down a sidewalk by yourself with them. But now the popular girls are the kind girls and the fun girls and the accepting girls. And I'm just seeing such a shift in Best Buddies. And, you know, when we go to that annual conference, those kids with IDD, it is their 15 minutes of fame. And the stories they tell about overcoming adversity and bullying, you know, but then they talk about the one person who walked up and helped pick up their backpack, the one person who brought them in. And that's just such a blessing. So we're seeing a lot of that in schools, and in harmony with our, you know, diversity and inclusion that we're working a lot on lately. That research shows that kids by the age of 3 gravitate toward kids who look like them and speak like them. So it has to start really early, in the home, in the preschool. And I love the Best Buddies started in college and went down to high school, and now it's getting younger and younger, where by the time these kids get to high school, like Anthony Shriver always says, he hopes he goes out of business, that we don't need this anymore. And I think that's our dream. But schools with Best Buddies, it's just a thing. It's a movement, and it's just normal. Yeah, it's very cool. Best Buddies is just doing great work.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah, and I'm a big Hamilton fan. I don't know if anybody else is, but I love the, you know, it's a movement, not a moment. And I feel like, yeah, as we kind of internalize that a little bit more as to, you know, this isn't just, you know, something that's going to happen in high school. It's the concepts of inclusivity that kind of permeate through everything from being a kindergartner and having some time set aside where you can interact with those kids that, you know, you may not fully kind of register are different, but somewhere in your mind you kind of register that they are, and then kind of say, well, you know, we're definitely more alike than we are different, and how can we continue forward? So that way we really build in inclusivity into every aspect of life. It moves forward into the employment sphere, whether it's advocating for jobs for people with IDD, or if it's people without IDD advocating on behalf of people with IDD. So I think it's, you know, it's really great to kind of see that it's happening on a deeper level than just a club on school campus. And I think that that's really the cool part, that having worked with Best Buddies for so long, that, you know, you really kind of see it really getting ingrained. But I did want to kind of, I know we have about 9-ish or so minutes left. I wanted to kind of, I see some people have kind of been dropping things into the chat, which thank you so much. But Michelle, any of the Dames members, any of the panelists, if you have any questions, you know, we just like this to kind of be a little bit of an open forum time.
So Trevor, I would just like to ask a question of Blake, because a lot of people are really interested in the elementary school program. And I know that you and I connected you to my son's, you know, teacher, because he's in a self-contained classroom. And I was like, oh my God, we need this Best Buddies program. And she's all about inclusion. And so I know you guys were working well with her, and we've kind of talked around the program, but will you guys speak specifically about what happens when Best Buddies gets into the school and what the program looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the program looks a little bit different for different ages, because obviously students are very different from elementary and high school. In elementary school, we like to have one advisor. If there's more, that's obviously better, just because it is a little bit of a responsibility. And depending on what their schedule looks like, we ideally would love for them to get the club together once a week or once every 2 weeks would be ideal. And normally with the younger kids, it's during the day, because trying to navigate getting a bunch of kids that are that young after school is a nightmare. So it's normally during the day, sometimes during lunch hour, and you have the kids that are in the special needs classroom and the gen eds kids, if they do lunch together, if they do just a class together, however your advisor wants to put that together. And then they typically do some sort of like project together. So if you want to do a craft that month, or if you want to read a book together that month, or if you're going to go like outside and go on a walk together that month, that's totally fine, whatever you want to do. And I can send ideas too, if that's something that you guys are interested in. But so it's just really just hanging out on a scheduled time. So these kids that wouldn't typically get to know each other are able to build those friendships and relationships. Now, when they get older in high school and ideally in middle school, we like to match them in a one-to-one friendship. So what that means is any of the students are more than welcome to be in the club, but we try we try to pair a student with IDD up with a student that's not, and they just become friends. So they're that one person that the other one can depend on. And we like for them to talk at least once a week, whether that's via texting, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever social media that they're using, or if it's in person. I know right now that looks a little bit different. And then for them to hang out at least once a month, I always like to push that they do more, because you typically hang out with your friends a little bit more than that. But it is going to be whatever, you know, they have time to do. Sometimes a student is involved with multiple activities or clubs or whatever. So they really talk about those boundaries of what they want their friendships to look like, and they kind of go from there. And then they're matched in the one-to-one friendship for a year typically. However, if they become really good friends and they want to stay in Best Buddies, then they can absolutely stay matched for the remainder of like their high school career, or longer if they end up going to college and into adulthood. Nicole's actually matched still with her buddy too as an adult, which is really cool. I'll let her speak on that a little bit. But yeah, so it looks a little bit different, but really it's just giving students the opportunity to meet each other and to have these friendships.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and we are definitely getting more versed in the virtual world, I guess. I wouldn't say we're the best at it, but we're definitely adjusting to the virtual world. Blake is continuing to open schools during this virtual time as well. So we are 100% still seeing that this like can still continue forward, even though we have a huge kink in our lives right now. So yeah, like there's still definitely a lot of opportunity to open that forward. And I think what is really awesome about all of these friendship programs and to get started with all these schools is that Best Buddies is a lifelong program. We well, I guess I shouldn't say lifelong. We start at kindergarten. And then we go, and I say up until 99 because you can't be 100 in our club. No. But we do have that adult friendship program. And so these are things that a lot of people can carry for a very, very long time. And that's what I think is really awesome about Best Buddies. And I volunteered for a long time and chose to leave education to come into this world. Because it does continue to help service people. And there are many, many different factions of Best Buddies that can help all kinds of different people. And so it's something that's just, I mean, a huge passion of mine. I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face. And, you know, I'm glad to kind of be back in the schools and teaching sort of again, and teaching this pre-employment stuff, as well as like continuing to see all of their friendships and everything continue to grow as we have events and different things. And that's kind of where we can get the under 5 people involved and get parents more involved, is our outside events that we have. Because not just these friendship programs, we have statewide events. We have a huge friendship walk, which is huge amounts of fun. And we usually meet together and walk around Kiwanis Lake, and it's just a big party. We've got buddy prom, and anybody can come to prom that we do. Most people with IDD have been typically excluded from prom-like things. And so we hold a prom. We have all kinds of leadership training days for people that are interested in just like additional leadership outside of the friendship program. This helps teach the students how to run the clubs, because we're also empowering students to run their own club. Each club on the high school level has a buddy director, and that person is somebody with IDD that's basically the co-president. Their voice is so utilized. So we try to use as many people as we possibly can and continue to empower them to move forward.
So Nicole, since you're speaking, can I ask you a little bit more about the pre-employment program? Is that primarily like a voc rehab, where you're teaching the person with the disability how to work in the workplace, or are you guys more focused on working with the place that they're going into and how they can adapt to having a more inclusive environment?
Yeah, so the pre-employment transition services that it's new to Arizona, just started back in July. To Best Buddies as a whole, it's been around for about 18 months. So we're definitely really kind of new to understanding how it does align with the voc rehab stuff.
Okay.
And that's what comes into Awesome Play with, and Sandy is on here, but she definitely, on the job side of things, they are 100% doing voc rehab. So we start the pre-employment training with all of the self-advocacy, and I teach 5 weeks of self-advocacy, identifying what your values are, things that you like. We kind of start talking about dream jobs, and then we go into job exploration. I recently have been working with Higley Unified School District, and there's 2 students that would love to work at McDonald's, and that's their dream job. And so we are investigating even further, why is that your dream job? And a lot of them, it's because, and one of the students flat out said, oh, I have a friend in my group home that works there, and that's where people with a disability can work. And to me, that's like, I'm so excited that's your dream job, and I'm not going to discourage you of it, but kind of disheartening to me that that's how you view that you can only work in the world. So we go into that job exploration to discuss all kinds of industries of the work field that you can go into. And then we really go into that workplace readiness stuff. So that is more the VR side of things and teaching those skills. We also do job shadowing, and Trevor made an awesome video with me to go through the day in the life of what a job can look like. But we really start to investigate the other sides of things. You know, we have a student right now, and his dream job is to be the Arizona Cardinals coach. So we discussed how that's probably not a possibility, because that's not a possibility for majority of the population of people, but how can he still work for the Cardinals and kind of like figure out how to reach those dreams, but by also finding other stuff. We also do talk about post-secondary options. So if they are planning university, trade schools, what other services and other nonprofits exist that also help do these kinds of things. So we kind of cover all of it. I teach for about 20 weeks, and it can go longer than that if we need to, but it can get pretty individualized per student. Again, I've got that person at Higley, and there's another student there who would like to be a chef. And so I am going to help her investigate different trade school options and culinary things for her to actually get to those steps. So my job is also to help open opportunities for the teachers and parents to know that there's other things that exist.
That's awesome. That sounds really great. I love it. That's exciting. Annie, I just had one more question for you. I really loved that mood meter that we did in the beginning. So my son is 7 and is nonverbal. And so I find that the words that we give children that are nonverbal tend to be pretty limited, especially when we look at his like AAC device. It's like, I'm angry and I'm frustrated, or like, there's just like maybe 10 words. And it's like, oh, that's so not the breadth of like human emotion, right? And
Right.
so I loved looking at that visual. And is there a place where we can go to like print that out? I would love to just have a copy of that so that we could start talking more about all of those different kinds of emotion, because it's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So honestly, I just did Google Images and typed in the mood meter and you'll see it pop up.
Perfect.
And then his book, Mark Brackett book, is called Permission to Feel, and really talks about that it's okay to have every feeling, every single feeling is okay, you know, but it helps you get those words out, especially with nonverbal, and then you can start connecting those with pictures, you know, and then keep looking for, you know,
Now,
videos
listen
or something.
to
If you're watching a movie, you can pause it
You said you were finished.
and talk
told-
about that. So
Okay.
yeah,
Now-
just Google images on it.
Okay.
And I think it's great. And I love for nonverbal, I think picture cards are, you know, your best friend,
Mhm.
whether it's what's your favorite food. It's great. You know, we talked about best buddies. Actually, when Trevor and I first met, we were talking about this at leadership conference, was what do we do with nonverbal? And it's all about picture cards with commonalities. So if they have a friend over playing with a friend who's super verbal, they could still do the pictures and say, that's my favorite too, or, oh, I hate mustard on my sandwich. But you know this, but picture cards I think are such a blessing.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like pausing movies and saying, oh, he must feel really angry. And so they can see that during shows, these cartoons, whatever. How sad his dad died. Oh, that must be so sad. Or she didn't get invited to the party. But I think you can use media as a great resource as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ariel, I really want to thank you too for participating today. We had somebody in the comment who was like, oh my God, you stay calm under pressure. You've got your kids around you and you're still delivering this beautiful message to everybody. And I really appreciated what you had to say about, as a sibling, like it's okay to be like frustrated and sad and long for those connections, just like, you know, we do as parents. And I really appreciate you being on today and bringing that perspective.
Yeah, you're really amazing, Ariel. My husband wanted to invent a Velcro suit where he would have a strip of Velcro on the wall and he could just zip the kids into it and just stick them, because it was illegal to put them in a crate. But he's like, if I just stick them on the wall, I could like go to the bathroom and come back. So anyone who's dealt with toddlers, you're like, I get it. I see that Velcro suit. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about it.
Yeah.
Play in the dog crate, but you know, you can't just close it.
Can't close it.
Right.
Wah, wah.
And normally,
You're doing great.
I apologize. There are a lot of big emotions in our house, like really big emotions, and we're still working through all of them. So, but thank you guys.
Yeah, walk into any preschool classroom and you'll see the exact same thing happen. Very normal.
Well, I really want to thank you guys all for coming on today and for sharing so much about what Best Buddies does and how it helps contribute to this idea of inclusion within our community. Trevor, I'm going to go ahead and let you close it out if you want to give any email addresses or contact information for Best Buddies in Arizona.
Yeah, of course. Like we said earlier, you know, we've started adapting to the virtual world, and we're continually learning as everybody is. But I just want to thank you, say thank you to everybody who is currently on that helps kind of contribute to the conversation, and to anybody who watches this after the fact. I hope that this information has been really helpful. not only just for, all of the things that Best Buddies does, but just, kind of opening up the conversation on a broader scope and scale to, that it's okay to feel. I love the concept of, permission to feel. I think that that's a really important thing to kind of keep in the back of our minds, that, feeling these things sometimes seems inconvenient when we have so many other things going on, but it's totally okay to address those and kind of take those head on rather than just kind of ignoring them. So thank you to Annie for that. And thank you to Ariel for your amazing inputs, and to Blake and Nicole for just being absolute, scholars in the world of what Best Buddies does and the options that, parents have as far as getting their kids involved. And then additionally, just, ways that we can get involved more as advocates in the mission of inclusion for everybody. So thank you to everybody. As far as contact information goes, all of our email addresses are just first name, last name @bestbuddies.org. So my name is Trevor Paxton. I am the development director, so I oversee, a lot of the larger scale kind of fundraising initiatives, grant opportunities, special events, all that stuff. So if you want to get involved in any sort of capacity, you want to volunteer, maybe bring in some of your friends to, join a committee to help us continue to grow the mission of Best Buddies, 100% I would love to speak with you. Lisa Cleary, our state director, is also on this call as well. She is an absolute rock star, and so she kind of helps oversee all that stuff, in addition to overseeing the operations of the entire office. So no big deal. She's got a lot on her plate. No, but she's very happy to have any conversations with anybody. Nicole Paxton is our transitions manager, and I think on the screen it should have, I think she dropped it into the chat as well. And then Blake Barrett is our program manager of volunteers, so she oversees all of the schools. If you want to get Best Buddies open on your school campus, we would absolutely love to have that conversation with you. One of the nice things about being a little bit more virtual is that, we have very much adapted to having more meetings and meeting with more people, and the ability to expand into areas that we couldn't have expanded to 4 or 5 years ago is, has just exploded. So we're really excited to do that as well. And then Annie, she works for Sanford Harmony, also is, just launching a life coaching business, among I don't even know how many other things that she has her hands in, but she's absolutely fantastic. Annie, if you want to share your email address, that's totally fine. If not, that's okay as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's anniemiddlemiss@gmail.com is the easiest way to find me, because I'm the only one. I also have a website, another tricky one, anniemiddlemiss.com. Again, I'm the only one with my name. That's where you can find my website on presentations on resilience, life coaching on resilience, and we all need a little resilience right now.
Amen.
And then Ariel Sansom, she works with Absolute HCBS, doing, helping coordinate with, respite care, attendant care, habilitation, all that, in addition to just being a stellar human being on top of that. So I think Ariel had mentioned, the different support groups that she has, kind of been a part of for a while. If you would like to reach out to her and just kind of open up that conversation as well. Ariel, I don't know if you want to share your contact information. But that's Ariel at absolutehcbs.com. If you can't see the chat after the fact, but once again, thank you to everybody who joined us. We are so pumped to have this partnership with Dames. Thank you for all that you do for your children, for yourselves, for the parent community at large, and for the just the IDD movement in general. You are all the people that are really kind of helping us create a more inclusive world, and that shouldn't be understated. So thank you for joining us. I think, Michelle, I'll throw it back over to you, but we're just very grateful to have had the opportunity to connect with you, and we look forward to connecting in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all. Thank you all for attending and participating today. And thank you for those who were able to come and learn so much about this really wonderful program. Thanks, you guys.